We've all heard the story. Somewhere out there is the one. A perfect mirror. A twin flame. Someone who completes you. This idea, the soulmate, has captured imaginations for centuries. But what if it's not what you think? What if this search for the one isn't about love at all, but about avoiding yourself? Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, saw something most of us miss entirely. He understood that the longing for a soulmate often isn't about wholeness with another, but a cry from the unconscious to become whole within. So, do soulmates really exist? Jung's answer is complicated, poetic, and possibly not what you want to hear. Modern culture tells us that love should be easy, magical, and effortless if the person is right. That the soulmate connection will be instant, intuitive, and overwhelmingly perfect. But Carl Jung looked beneath the fantasy, and what he found wasn't romance, it was projection. Jung observed that we don't fall in love with people. We fall in love with what we project onto them, especially the traits we've denied in ourselves. The soulmate we chase? It's often just the mirror of our unconscious, reflecting back the parts of us we've disowned. That intoxicating spark, that magnetic pull, it may not be destiny. It may be the shadow. Jung wrote extensively about anima and animus, the unconscious feminine and masculine components within every psyche. In men, the anima represents his inner feminine. In women, the animus represents her inner masculine. When someone in the outer world resembles your inner image of the anima or animus, a powerful projection happens. You feel like you've known them forever. You idealize them. You feel incomplete without them. But Jung warned, this isn't love, it's enchantment. You're not loving them. You're loving the part of yourself you see in them. This is why soulmate relationships can start like heaven and quickly descend into chaos. Because once the projection wears off, you're left with a real human being. Not your fantasy, not your missing piece. Just another soul, flawed, shadowed, complex. We like to believe someone out there will finally get us, heal us, complete the story we've carried since childhood. But Jung believed this longing is often not about another person. It's about a longing for inner union. The ego wants love to be a rescue. The soul wants love to be a mirror. The problem is, most of us aren't looking for mirrors. We're looking for relief from our loneliness, our trauma, our unfinished emotional business. Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But transformation isn't always romantic. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, painful, necessary. If you're constantly searching for someone to fill a void, you might never stop searching, because no one can complete what you refuse to face inside. According to Jung, the path to real love doesn't begin with another. It begins with integration. Integration of your shadow. Integration of your inner masculine or feminine. Integration of your unloved parts. Only when you begin the journey inward can you meet someone who reflects your wholeness, not your wounds. So, do soulmates exist? In a way, yes, but not how you've been told. A soulmate is not someone who completes you. A soulmate is someone who awakens you. They challenge your ego. They disturb your patterns. They stir something deep within you that you've avoided. They may not stay forever. They may not always bring peace. But they bring something far more valuable. A mirror. A lesson. A nudge toward your own soul. But how do you know the difference between real connection and projection? How can you tell if it's love or the unconscious at play? To truly understand that, we need to go deeper, into the psyche, into the dream of love, into the very nature of what Jung called the individuation process. Because the real soulmate, Jung might argue, is the version of you you've never fully met. Carl Jung believed the primary task of every human life wasn't to find the perfect partner. It was to individuate. That means becoming whole by integrating the many fragmented parts of your psyche, your ego, your shadow, your inner child, your inner masculine and feminine, into a unified self. And here's the truth that stings. Most people use romantic love as a detour from that work. We chase relationships that feel like magic, thinking, this must be it, my missing piece. But what we're often really chasing is avoidance, a way to dodge the painful but necessary inner work. This doesn't mean love is false. It means love, real love, becomes transformative only when it supports your individuation, not replaces it. So how does the concept of a soulmate fit into this deeper journey? Jung wouldn't deny the existence of profound connections between people, but he'd caution you not to confuse depth with destiny. A soulmate, if we use the term carefully, may appear in your life to activate something buried deep within your unconscious. They pull you toward your wounds. They bring your unresolved issues to the surface. They awaken you to your own inner contradictions. And because of that, it can feel spiritual, fated, even cosmic. But Jung would remind us, this is not because the other person is the one. It's because they reflect the parts of you that you've been disconnected from. In this way, soulmates are not fairy tale endings. They're soul assignments. To Jung, the idea of the soulmate was better understood as the inner relationship between the conscious self and the soul's opposite. This is where anima and animus return. In every man exists an inner feminine, the anima. In every woman exists an inner masculine, the animus. These archetypes are not simply gender roles. They are deeply symbolic figures, representing your relationship with emotion, creativity, logic, spirit, vulnerability, strength. When you haven't integrated these parts within, you'll unconsciously seek them in others. You'll fall in love with someone who carries your missing pieces. But as long as these pieces remain unconscious, you'll keep mistaking the person for the part of yourself they're mirroring. This is why relationships often fall apart once the projection fades. Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And love, true soul-level love, demands exactly that. When a soulmate appears, it's not for comfort. It's for confrontation. They mirror your beauty and your wounds. They show you what you admire and what you avoid. They love the parts of you that you haven't learned to love yourself. But here's the paradox. Until you begin the work of self-acceptance, you'll reject the very person who reflects your soul. You'll call them too much. You'll say, "They're triggering me." You'll leave because it hurts. But what really hurts is being seen. Many people wonder, if they were my soulmate, why did it end? Why did it hurt so much? Why did they leave? Jung would say, because they did what they came to do. They showed you yourself. They opened a door within your unconscious. They awakened a hunger, not for them, but for wholeness. Not all soulmates are life partners. Some are mirrors. Some are messengers. Some are lessons dressed in the disguise of lovers. And that's okay. The point isn't to keep the soulmate. The point is to become the self they helped you see. Here's the hard truth. If you're still searching for the one, you haven't fully met yourself. That longing you feel, it's not for a partner. It's for integration. It's the soul saying, you don't need to be completed. You need to be reunited with all of you. When you shift your focus from finding love to becoming love, you stop attracting relationships built on need and start calling in those built on depth. This doesn't mean you'll never want companionship. It means you'll no longer use it to fill your emptiness. Because that emptiness was always an invitation to finally meet the self. So what happens when two people, both walking the path of individuation, come together? What does a conscious soulmate relationship actually look like? That's where we go next, into the possibility of real connection, not as a rescue, but as a reflection of your inner wholeness. Imagine two people, each committed to their own healing, each aware of their shadows, each walking the path of individuation. When they meet, something extraordinary happens. There is no overwhelming enchantment, no desperate clinging, no fantasy of rescue. Instead, there is recognition, groundedness, a quiet kind of knowing, not because they complete each other, but because they see and accept each other fully. This, Jung would say, is the highest form of relationship, not projection but presence. In a conscious partnership, you don't look for someone to save you from your wounds. You've already done the work to hold your own. You've danced with your shadow. You've met the inner child, the inner critic, the hidden rage, the buried grief. And you've stopped running. So when someone enters your life, you no longer ask, will you fix me? Will you love the parts one can't? Will you never leave? Instead, you ask, can we meet as whole beings? Can we support each other's growth? Can we hold space for the storms without losing our center? This is not romance as performance. This is romance as alchemy. In such relationships, conflict doesn't mean failure. It means growth. Your partner becomes a mirror, yes, but not of what's missing, of what's emerging. When something in them triggers you, you don't run. You inquire. You reflect. You ask, what part of me is being activated here? And they do the same. Together, you're not just building a life. You're building a laboratory of the soul, where each difficulty becomes an opportunity for deeper wholeness. This is love that evolves, love that matures, love that doesn't just feel good, but makes you better. Jung believed that the tension between two distinct individuals could create something larger than either alone. He said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. In a conscious soulmate connection, this transformation is not explosive, it's intentional. You each bring your wholeness to the table. You respect the third space between you, what Martin Buber called the I-thou relationship. In this space, love is not possession. It's not fusion. It's not dependency. It's a sacred meeting between two evolving selves, bound not by fear or fantasy, but by awareness, mutual respect, and soul-level presence. But what if you're still alone? Now maybe you're thinking, that sounds beautiful, but I'm still searching. Then here's Jung's message to you. Start within. The soulmate you crave may or may not come in the form of a romantic partner, but you can begin right now by forging that same connection with yourself. Become conscious of your projections. Befriend the unloved parts of your psyche. Integrate the anima or animus. Sit with your longing without trying to numb it. The more you unite with your own inner self, the more likely you are to draw someone who meets you there. Because ultimately, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are ready to receive. Jung wasn't against love. He simply understood that love without consciousness leads to suffering. The soulmate isn't the one who ends your search. They're the one who walks beside you as you both continue your inner work. They don't fill your void. They reflect your fullness. They don't save you. They meet you. And sometimes that person may not arrive when you expect, or stay forever. But when they come, you'll recognize them. Not by the way they rescue you, but by the way they remind you that you were never broken to begin with. But what happens when love does arrive, and you're still not ready? What if you meet a potential soulmate before you've done the work? Before you've integrated your shadow, your projections, your wounds? Sometimes, the person you've been calling in finally appears. They stir your spirit. They see you. They challenge you. But instead of joy, you feel fear. Old wounds start to burn. The urge to run creeps in. Why? Because no matter how deep the connection, if the inner work isn't done, the relationship becomes a battlefield for your unconscious. Jung taught that we meet ourselves through others. And if your self is still fragmented, divided between ego, shadow, anima, or animus, you won't recognize real love when it stands before you. You'll mistake it for a threat. Or worse, you'll try to mold it into a fantasy. Let's be honest. Many of us aren't looking for soulmates. We're looking for soothers. People who won't trigger us. Who will love us exactly as we are, without ever asking us to grow. That's not a soulmate. That's an emotional anesthetic. And when the real deal shows up, with depth, with challenge, with truth, we reject it. We say, they're too intense. They make me feel things I don't want to feel. I thought love was supposed to be easy. But Jung would say, love is supposed to be transformational. And transformation is rarely easy. When two people meet and are both committed to self-awareness, the relationship becomes a kind of alchemical vessel. Jung believed that just as lead could be transformed into gold, so too could human souls be refined through fire, pressure, and union. But both must be willing. When one or both partners resist inner growth, the relationship fractures. Projections turn to blame. Triggers become attacks. The sacred mirror becomes a war zone. And what could have been a path to wholeness becomes a repetition of old patterns. Not because the connection was wrong, but because the work was left undone. Here's the hardest truth of all. No one can love you into wholeness. They can reflect it. They can walk beside you. They can even awaken it. But they cannot do it for you. If you haven't faced your shadow, if you haven't met your inner feminine or masculine, if you still cling to the fantasy of being saved, then even the truest connection will dissolve under the weight of expectation. And you'll walk away saying, it just wasn't meant to be. But Jung would whisper, or maybe it was meant to transform you, and you weren't ready. So if you've lost someone who once felt like your soulmate, if the relationship collapsed under the pressure of old wounds, Don't see it as failure. See it as initiation. What did they awaken in you? What part of your psyche did they mirror? What wounds did they uncover, so you could finally face them? The end of the relationship may be the beginning of your deepest transformation. Because love doesn't always come to stay. Sometimes it comes to shatter the shell, so the self can emerge. Carl Jung might say, your ultimate soulmate is you. Not the ego self, not the curated identity, but the deep self. The one you find after the projections fall away, after the shadows are named, after the inner union is achieved. And when you meet that self, you no longer need someone to complete you. You're whole. And from that wholeness, real love is finally possible. Not because you're seeking it, but because you've become it. So, do soulmates really exist? Yes, but not in the way fairy tales promise. They're not sent to complete you. They're sent to awaken you, to reflect your inner world, to call forth yourself, to walk beside you as you become whole. And when they arrive, the question isn't, are they the one? The real question is, are you ready to meet yourself through them? Subscribe to the Awakened Compass and join our membership to unlock the full journey within.